Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Dadas Show, coming to you from the Kenya Red Cross Society here in South Sea in Nairobi. I'm your host, Ashiko Mbune. Now, as our name suggests, the Dadas Show aspires to promote the spirit of sisterhood and solidarity amongst Kenyan women. And we do this by creating an open and a safe platform for women to discuss issues pertaining to their health and lifestyle, their families, their careers, and anything that affects them in one way or another. We also take time to acknowledge and celebrate formidable women who are doing it big, not only for themselves, but also for their society at large. For us, those are our trailblazers. International Women's Day is celebrated annually on March the 8th. On this day, we recognize the social, cultural, political, and even economic achievements of women made by women worldwide. We also take a moment to reiterate the importance of gender equality. This year, the IWD carried the theme Accelerate Action, which emphasizes the importance and the urgency for achieving gender parity. That said, it has been 30 years since the World Conference on Women was held in Beijing. 30 years since the signing of what is considered a key global policy document on gender inequality. And at this pace, it is projected that full gender parity in Kenya will be established in the year 2158. Surely that is very disheartening. But today, I want us to turn our attention on what is actually working, who are working behind the scenes to ensure that action has been accelerated when it comes to achieving a gender parity. So on this episode of Dadas Show, I am joined by members of an organization. Now, this organization not only talks the talk, but also walks the walk when it comes to matters gender equality. Despite being 60 years old, this organization is still up to date with what it takes to ensure that we all have gender equality within the organization. Who am I talking about? You'll have to wait and see. As always, remember to get in touch with us across all social media platforms at KBC Channel 1. You can also reach us on our newly launched Facebook page at Dadas Show KBC. You can also reach me directly at Ashiko, the host, across all social media platforms. Before we get to meet this amazing organization on this International Women's Day celebration, let's take a look at the following feature.
International Women's Day 2025 is observed on 8th of March. This year's theme focuses on recognizing women's achievement and promoting gender equality under the theme Accelerate Action. This is a call for increased momentum and urgency in addressing the systemic barriers and biases that women face both in personal and professional areas. Kenya's two-decade journey toward gender equality has been shaped by three presidents, each leaving distinct marks on women's rights. Last year, the government launched a 5-year plan that seeks to undertake the constitutional mandate of advancing gender equality, non-discrimination and empowerment of all women and girls. The plan also aims to enhance opportunities and the capacity for women and other vulnerable groups to participate in national development and reinforce evidence based on decision-making on gender issues. Dadas Show took it to the street to find out if women and girls get the same treatment, pay and benefits as their male counterparts.
Equality bado haijafikia, but we are coming up. Si kama kitambo. Sahihi ukiona wamama wanafanya kazi na wanaume na wanamama wanaona wanafinyika pay, they have a voice. So bado kimapato ama malipo ya mishahara sana sana wanga wamama wanapata less. Yeah, and that one I can confirm.
I have also really directly encountered places where, because I am a woman, I am given less attention when I'm specifically looking for sponsorships for my shows. Because I'm a woman, and that is why I stopped. Actually, that really discouraged me because it happened quite a few times. So I quit that. Like, I stopped going to offices and requesting for sponsorship and looking for that kind of business. I decided I'll just produce my own work, right? I will look for my own money, produce my own work, and then let people see this is what I do, rather than proving to people that I'm a woman, so I can do it. I'm a woman, I'm married, I have to know that I'm married so that people can listen to me. So yeah, definitely there's some challenges, but when I saw them, I really ran because it seemed like it was going to be a bigger problem in the long run.
Yeah, there's a long way for us to go in terms of prioritizing women and giving them the same opportunities that men have. Because as you look at how people are treated in general, in some places, yes, women are given priorities, like in Muslims, in the Muslim culture. But if you look at our Christian culture and other spheres, we still have a long way to go, because even the respect that women get in the career industry, it's not the same as the men get. The salaries that some of the men get, it's not the same as the salary women get, despite performing the same activities. So there's still a long way to go, but if we continue putting attention or attracting attention to it, I feel we'll get somewhere.
It's a mentality issue, it's a belief system that wanawake ni wako lazy, women are just women. People still believe that women are a lesser, gender in terms of their abilities. Not true at all.
Tunafanya voice yetu isikike. Kama ni mwanjiri tunamwambia we have that right, and by doing so, then if we just push and push, then the outcome will be positive.
I know very many men who are the same age and of the same level as myself, and I know that I can do so much better than them, and I have proven that, and it's not a competition or anything, but it's an individual thing. It has nothing to do with male or female. It's just who you are as a person. So you pick the people who you can see are capable depending on their capabilities.
I feel that women have a role to play in this, because as women we cannot be hating on each other or not supporting each other. It's not often that women support each other. So as women, this is our task. Even wherever you are, support the women around you, in growth. Yeah.
They all agreed that more needs to be done to achieve gender equality at workplaces. Women and men have the right to equal treatment, including the right to equal opportunities in political, economic, cultural, and social spheres. This year's theme, Accelerate Action, is a worldwide call to acknowledge strategies, resources, and activity that positively impact women's advancement and to support and elevate their implementation. To all women, happy International Women's Day. You deserve a pat on the back. From Dadas Show, my name is Miriam Odanga.
Welcome back. Remember, this is the International Women's Day celebration, and the theme that was carried this year is Accelerate Action, which of course goes ahead to emphasize the need and the urgency for gender parity. As mentioned, our guests today are from a Gender Parity Ambassador, the one and only Kenya Red Cross Society, and representing this wonderful organization and joining us for today's conversation right next to me is Esther Shege. And Esther Shege is the head of region, Central Region. Thank you so much, Esther, for joining us today. And right next to her, we have Rachel Siokau, who is the WASH engineer, Lower Eastern Region. She'll tell us more about what it takes and what does WASH stand for. And then finally, we have Christine Amondi, who is the Red Cross Action Team, RCAT, Lower Eastern Region. So here we are talking about ladies, and formidable ladies at that, who are joining us on this International Women's Day celebration to tell us how this particular organization has been able to get gender equality, or is pushing for gender equality for the past 60 years. Of course, I cannot fail to acknowledge my wonderful audience who take time to join us week in, week out as we discuss issues, affecting women and Kenyans in general, with a bid to find a lasting solution. Of course, I also want to appreciate you at home for taking time every Sunday to sit with us as we learn, as we share, as we give each other support, as we grow as a nation. So let's get into today's conversation. And before we even get far, I've just talked about your title. But kindly tell us what the position that you actually hold at the Kenya Red Cross Society and what this particular job entails.
Thank you, Ashiko, for having us as we celebrate Kenya Red Cross at 60, celebrating 60 years with concerted efforts towards gender equality.
Yes.
My name is Esther Chege. I'm the head of region, Kenya Red Cross Central Region. Basically, my role in the Kenya Red Cross as a leader is to ensure that we have coordinated efforts in the Central Region, and this is in matters disaster response, in matters stakeholder engagement, in matters volunteers and staff management, and also decision making with matters related to Kenya Red Cross affairs.
Karibu sana, Esther, and we really truly appreciate your presence here. We'll move on to our next panelist, who will tell us a little bit about herself and what her job entails. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Ashiko. My name is Rachel Siokau. I am the Regional Water and Sanitation Hygiene Engineer. I am based in the Lower Eastern Region, where I cover 5 counties. And I also support Central Region, where Madam Boss comes from. So yes, that's what I do.
So you said WASH, so that is water and sanitation?
Water and Sanitation Hygiene.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for joining us. We really look forward to us telling you, the efforts that you are putting in place in those particular areas. And then finally, I'll let her introduce herself first before we proceed. So Christine, karibu sana.
My name is Christine Amondi, and as you had mentioned earlier, I'm part of the Red Cross Action Team within Nairobi County. Our role majorly is the people you see on TV responding to disasters year in, year out. I've been part of the response team since 2007. So largely the emergencies or disasters that you've seen since then, I've largely been part of the team who have been responding to those and just supporting families, grieving with families, just taking care of one person at a time.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
We are talking about accelerating action to get gender equality. Before we even go to accelerating the action, let's take a step back. How would you define gender equality?
For me, in the simplest way, I would define it as fairness, where men and women have equal opportunities to education, equal opportunities to access to healthcare, equal opportunities to economic participation, basically in all social aspects, just ensuring that both men and women are able to, are equal. But then now, what does this mean to our economic, the development of the country? I would just take it as, like, for instance, when you have men participating in the economic empowerment, then that means that most people are able to explore their full potential, and then that means the productivity goes high. When we talk about access to health, where women and also men at the same time are able to access health services when need arises. And I think over and above is about the social aspect of it. When we are having people participate and where there is equality in this, then it means that we're able to live in a peaceful environment, where we do not have gender violence, where we are able to have both men and women being able to be in a platform where they can be able to coexist. Then for me, I think I would really define that as gender equality, fairness in all aspects.
Asante sana for that, Esther. I'm going to move on to you, Rachel. Based on your experience, especially in the areas, we're talking the Makuenis and all of those, and even just in general, based on your experience, what are some of the biggest challenges to achieving what she's talking about, the gender equality, in Kenya. What are some of the biggest challenges that we face?
Thank you so much for that question. From my experience, we've seen that women are disproportionately affected by crisis, and even just normal development affects them disappropriately. So some of the challenges that they experience are cultural and social norms that exist within these communities. And also some of the challenges include health disparities, where simple things like menstrual hygiene, that will keep a woman home, that will keep a schoolgirl at home, so she'll not be able to go to school and get her education. And also things like representation, political representation, it's very, very low. So most of the men are not able to articulate clearly the effects of what women go through. So for me, those are the challenges that I've experienced in the field, working with women, and those are the things that we are trying to change.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Christine, what about you? What are some of the challenges you feel, what are some of the barriers that come into play to achieving gender equality, especially, from where you're concerned?
I think for me as a responder, they're a bit diverse because in our spaces, and especially back when we started, a lot of things have changed now. But back in the day and sometimes now, there are things that the male counterparts don't think you can do. For example, lifting of weights.
Yes.
You'd arrive at a scene and there are things that you need to lift, or I've been part of Mercy Train, Jaza Lorry, where we'd had to carry bales of unga into trailers just to get them to other people.
Yes.
And so when you do carry, then the people you're supporting go, is that a girl?
Yeah.
How can she carry that much weight? Because you have to carry the bale. Someone has to move it, and you're the one who's there. So you're not going to say, well, let me wait on someone else to come and do it for me. And then there are issues to do with religion as well. There are instances where you respond to maybe a road accident, and because of religion, male or female, you're not allowed to touch someone. There are things to do with cultural issues around response, and I think this you can talk to many responders where there are some communities that do not relate well with emergency response. What is it that you do? What's this about? Why are you here? And so when you're talking gender and you walk into a space and the first thing someone says is, oh, we can't listen to you, maybe you call a man.
Yes.
So it forces us women to then come out stronger. Like, I have to be fierce for things to work, because if I just show up as Christine, then it's a lady talking, and if I brought in a man and we had the same conversation, that would go differently.
Yes.
So you find that during that time, there's more adrenaline going on than whatever you need, because as I told you earlier when we were getting introduced, that having conversations around who I am even affect personal relationships.
Oh, wow.
Because there are people who can't date me because of my work. So you can't even tell someone, sometimes you can joke around and say, sometimes I pick dead bodies that's my job, because when I'm called to a collapsed building, that is my job. People will bring food, people will bring other things, but the gender part of it, unless you ask or unless you have it in the first aid kits or whatever we have in our system, very rare will you find that people thought we can actually see women on TV. So while we are donating, why don't we also bring? Yes.
Exactly. And you think about even the time that, are we looking at gender equality from a different standpoint, or should we actually really, really go back to the roots from Sisi Palituko, from our households? Rachel, do you have anything to add on that? Because it's very interesting, and we're actually very, very, we are proud and we're in awe of the Kenya Red Cross Society for the efforts that you actually put in. But in certain areas and in certain conversation, it's been said, yes, the 2/3 gender rule has been put in place, but it's not adequately implemented. And part of the biggest problems are the women themselves. and they decide, you know what, so the positions are there, but the women are not coming up, you know. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? And I'd also like to hear what Christine's thoughts on that are.
Actually, what I wanted to add on was the projects and programs that we implement, some of which that require us to have committees within the water and sanitation projects that we undertake. So in those areas, we have to set up committees, and we have to ensure that the 2/3 gender rule is implemented. So we bring in, we educate our men to be able to allow the women to come in and be involved in the project so that they are able to make better decisions for their communities, for their households. And that's what we are trying to do to implement as an organization to the communities.
So you're using the prong, you're not just coming directly to the women, you're using two different prongs. So you're using the men to get to the women.
Yes.
That's actually pretty genius. What about you, Christine? You know, what is your take when it comes to the implementation of the 2/3 gender rule?
I think the policies are there, and the policies are helping, but even with the legal, there has to be the intention, there has to be the goodwill, there has to be a lot of streamlining and push to make sure that the departments, the structural, you know, the government is a long line of structures and offices and departments and things. So that intentional push to ensure that that's happening. And even for us, even in response, we have community-based response teams that who are all nowadays are the first responders largely on the ground.
Yes.
We find that most of the time we just go and support. And you see that more women are actually in those community-based response teams. And they do their own trainings, their own, you know, they prepare very well. There are communities that if you go now, if there's a fire, they have their sand baskets, they have what they are ready to respond, and they are very well aware. So in terms of, let's start from institutions, even in school systems, even in, she said we are parents. And I think we are parents who deal with a lot of misconception, because every time you leave there, like, so who's going to look after your children? It's a thing that ties women down many times, because how did you go for a whole week? Must you be there? Don't you think you're risking?
You are going to
COVID,
save other people. Who is going to save you?
Yeah, you looked at COVID response, and every time you stepped out, and everyone was like, don't you think you're the one who's going to make your children sick? Because you're going to, because you're the one who's going to bring the infection home. So even as we educate, and even as we continuously insist on the leadership to put things in place to work, even our home-based structures, how we educate our sons and how we educate our girls, because we cannot have it halfway. You have to empower men to deal with the women you've empowered.
Of course.
Otherwise, the society becomes really, really unbalanced in terms of how we work.
I really love that. And I feel like that's already taking place. And I think that's a call to action, especially to the boy child, because we do have very, very empowered, young ladies who know exactly what they want. So we now need to turn and also help empower the boy child. So I'm really, really, really happy to hear that. And I like, actually, the response from all three of you has been very, very positive, because I think in other sittings we sit and they'll talk about, no, the 2/3 gender rule does not work, that doesn't work. But I like, and my takeout from what all of you have talked about is being intentional. Is being intentional about implementing it and putting in place strategies that can actually work. It is not just saying that we actually have the 2/3 gender rule, but it's actually being intentional and putting things like you're talking about, including the men, to encourage the women, starting from a basic level from the family. So thank you so much, ladies. And I think that would be some amazing news to the powers that be to know that that's working definitely, very well. So I'll come back to you, Esther. You've been implementing, the Kenya Red Cross Society has been implementing various initiatives to promote gender equality across all the programs and operations. And that is part of the reason why we are very excited to be with you as we celebrate the International Women's Day, especially with the topic. What are some of the programs and initiatives that you have implemented that go in line with today's conversation?
Thank you. I think now that speaks to the core of why we do what we do. Kenya Red Cross, we work with vulnerable populations. And vulnerable populations here, we will talk about women, we will talk about girls, elderly, men, those categories.
Yes.
So we have been implementing quite a number of activities to the community, outwards, and also reflecting inwards what we are doing to support the women in the organization. So and it's interesting to note that in our implementation, by the way, 64%, almost 64% of our interventions will directly go to women. Why women? Because it's women who remain at home while men go out there when there's a conflict. It is women who will remain at home when the men go outside there to find pasture for the animals. So most of our direct beneficiaries in all our programmings goes to the women. So we've been implementing activities ranging from speaking about SGBV, sexual and gender-based violence. We've been dealing with activities on economic empowerment. Like in Lamu, we have a project whereby we empower women, women entrepreneurs, where we get women and we train them on economic empowerment. We are able to teach them basics, how to do business plans, and at the same time, be able to do market linkages.
Yes.
We also have climate action activities, again, where women are the core of all this. We usually have cash voucher assistance, which again is something that we do touching on the women. But over and above that, in the institution, again, we also have systems and structures that have been set to support us women to be able to support other women outside there. Like for instance, the environment that we have flexible working hours for women, whereby you can be able to, let's say for instance, you've just had your child, then you can be able to have flexible working hours. We have what we have even within our facilities is that we have areas, breastfeeding areas, where women can be able to, like, you can be able to nurse your babies, you can be able to express, and at least at the same time, you offload these issues, like, what do I have to do if I have to be as productive as the other person? Then we have equal pays. Like, we do not say these are men, they can do this hard job, so we pay them more than the others. So we have a standardized structure for that. But I know the issues of mental health, again, are a problem to both of us, both men and women. Again, we have a whole framework on mental health support for women, of course, and men, basically the staff within the organization.
Yes.
And we have, for leaders, the leadership in the organization, like every other leader has an opportunity to influence change, okay? So then if we have to talk about equality, if we have to talk about this discussion for today and accelerating women action, then our leadership at the top must act, must be seen, must be heard to support women empowerment. And our leadership, I would say, has really supported that. We are not yet there. I know my colleague here will say that in her department there are fewer women than there would be than the men.
In engineering.
But there is intentionality of our leadership, even pushing women towards, actually growing through the career ladder, me being one of them, where you grow from a different career and you grow into positions of leadership where ordinarily those were male-dominated areas. So I think from a programmatic area, yes, we are trying a lot, having activities that cover that and give all those opportunities. But even within the organization, yes, we do talk the talk and walk the walk.
And walk the walk. And I truly see that, especially how you've so eloquently put it. And I think this is even making us and affirming our decision to, to celebrate with you this particular International Women's Day. So I will ask one final question, and of course it will be a three-parter before we take a break and get into the question and answer session. We started off by talking about, accelerating progress. And I don't know where this research was from, but of course it projected that full gender parity in Kenya will be achieved by the year 2158. And I remember reading this and my face just dropped. If there's anything that needs to be done, what must be done to accelerate this progress? Of course, let's start off, because there are different sectors and different facets that need to come together for something like this. Let's start off with you, Esther.
We can reach that goal sooner than we think. And we must appreciate, since the Beijing Convention and all that, a lot of efforts have been made towards achieving this by the government. One of the things that we have seen our government do is that we have policy, we have reforms that have been made towards gender equality. So the issue is not about the policies not being there, but the issue is about intentionality in implementing these policies. So the government needs to really support these calls to implement that. Number two, we talk about the 2/3 rule.
Yes.
Then we are talking about having more women on the table to take part on decision making. And this needs to come from up there. We need to lobby for more funding, and of course right now you say lobbying for more funding, and we're seeing the direction, what is happening with the funding. Then we also need to have more funding towards support towards ending gender inequality. Again, enforcement of these policies. We talk about SGBV. What is in place? What are the measures that are being put in place when we have such occurrences happen? So again, implementing and reinforcement of the laws that are there, then the government really needs to take an upper hand on that. And again, equal opportunities on access to education, equal opportunities on access to health, promoting more girls to take up these hard subjects that are
the STEM subjects.
Those hard subjects. We really need to have the government being at the front. Again, appreciating that there has been a lot of effort.
There's been a lot of effort.
That.
So perhaps the tone is actually changing as we carry on, because we were, 30 years and we are moving at snail pace. So it's good to hear that there's actually been progress, and what needs to be there is, you mentioned, intentionality in implementing, especially when it comes to the government. Thank you so much, Esther, for that. I'll move on to you, Rachel. What can the private sector, because like we said, it's a team to make this work. So what can the private sector do to accelerate this particular progress?
For me, the private sector, I feel, could be more involved and not work in silos. Let's have these private partnerships together with the organizations, together with the government, to implement the laws that have been made, the policies, so we are able to reach down to the people on the ground. Also, we should look up on matters equal pay to ensure that everybody is equally paid. Men, women, whatever it is, whatever they are in, they are paid equally. And then for me, it's just more partnerships. If we work together, we will be able to achieve this.
Thank you so much for that, Rachel. That is very, very key and very important, especially for the private sector. They've always been accused of, just working in their little cocoons and saying, you know what, that's not my problem. But I think for us to be able to achieve this as a country, then everybody definitely needs to take part. Thank you so much, Rachel, for that. And finally, Christine, what can the citizen and the public sector, you're a volunteer. When we're looking at people like Akina Nani, we're looking at the police, what progress needs to be done, to accelerate this achievement of gender parity?
I think for me, I'll start with the women, and women in leadership positions, women who are coming up, women in STEM, because there's a big growth in terms of women in STEM currently in the country, just to take people under their wings and journey with them. I think the women in leadership I'm totally for the if we mess up, we will mess up. So we are not going to allow women to mess up and we cover as, it's our... No. So even women in leadership position should take a position with dignity and honor and things, and make it a good name for other women to also be in leadership positions. I know it's a complete struggle when it comes to leadership roles, because there are spaces where if you're a female leader, the men don't respect you and things like that. I think just enforcing your space, knowing your role and standing by that allows for the women coming after you to already know that this table was set and it's a safe space. So even women in leadership now, it is our role to then create a safe space for the generation coming after us.
Yeah.
And that is just how we work around people, so that we do not continuously get these women in leadership. If you work with a woman, she'll be moody, she'll be all these stories that continuously, misconceptions that continuously give women a bad name when it comes to leadership role. I will still reiterate, even in religious spaces, in terms of women leadership, what they serve, what they represent, what does that mean in the home front for their kids and things like that. Also, when it comes to GBV, because I keep saying I do counseling and psychology, and a lot of times we find that abused mothers raised abused daughters.
Yes.
Because they never handled it or dealt with it, and the kids thought that is what it should be.
I think that's a call to action on a personal level, you know. What are you doing before you start asking from the public sector, the government? What are you doing to be able to accelerate action in achieving gender parity? So we are going to take a small break, and then we will be back for the question and answer session. Don't go far away. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you have missed quite an amazing first session, but fear not. All the previously aired episodes of Dadas Show can be found under the KBC channel YouTube page. Remember to follow, like, and subscribe. You can also find all our episodes on the Facebook page at Dadas Show KBC. So now we are rolling into the question and answer session, where our wonderful audience gets an opportunity to actually interact with our panel. It could be a question, it could be feedback, it could be a word of encouragement on this, on this particular celebration. Remember, the conversation of the day is Accelerate Action, which we are celebrating with the Kenya Red Cross on this International Women's Day 2025. So to start us off, we have Mercy, who has a question for Christine. Mercy, karibu sana.
Christine, I would just like to ask a question. Recently, we've seen a rise in the number of femicide cases in the country, affecting especially young ladies in campus in the university. What is Kenya Red Cross doing towards having conversations and enlightening young women and young men on solution-based approaches, so that they do not result to deciding probably to take one's life? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. That's a very, very valuable question, because we're having the numbers, the ages are really reducing. So you're finding somebody was 16, somebody was 20. So what is the Kenya Red Cross doing to address this?
I would just like to mention a few areas that we are going through just to support our younger generation. We have programs and activities under the branch level, where we have activities that empower the young men, that are bringing young men together with leaders and people that are society respected and are able to have conversations around how to be a man, what it takes to be a man. Mentorship programs and activities like that. We are also having sessions and activities with the young women in terms of empowerment, in terms of emotional support, and largely also that Red Cross has a toll-free counseling support service. You can call 1199 and you will have a counselor readily available for you just to talk about this. And even as we look at the femicide issues at large, we are seeing an emotionally unstable generation. So it goes back to also how do we support the family structures and family systems to build up emotionally stronger people. So this also comes in with the projects that we already run within the communities. We are working with mothers, we are working with fathers, we are working with community leaders in terms of empowerment, in terms of whatever support they need that we can give in terms of what Red Cross does, and just making sure that the gaps that are there in terms of working also with partnership organizations, because there are things that we also don't mandated to do, and so when we are handling case issues, we also refer to the relevant authorities, because some things are supposed to be dealt with through the legal system, things that are supposed to be handled by the police. So even as we interact and even as we do the counseling and mentorship support, we have very clear guidelines on what we can and what we cannot do, and also the issues around consequences in terms of then if this is the issue, then where are we moving to, and who is then going to handle your case moving forward. So I think largely a just call to action again is as a Red Cross, we come in at a certain level. Then call to action is also that family structures work on making sure and educating and empowering and building systems that work in making sure that girls or even men, because even men are killed. We will not be ignorant of that factor. That we have conversations around what is safe in a relationship and what is not. When it is safe to walk away or wait till this happens and then we are all losing lives. Yes, I think that
we've been structured in a way that probably we do not have areas where we can be able to channel our issues. Or rather, there's a structured way that if there are these issues, we can handle them by ourselves. Sometimes you're not able to, So just really encouraging our young and even women and men that there's always an alternative. There are other ways of resolving dispute. And I think over and above is creating safe spaces where we can be able to pour out.
Wow. Thank you so much, Esther and Christine. I really hope your question has been answered, Marcin. So our next question of the day is from Maureen. Maureen, karibu sana.
Thank you. My name is Maureen. I really appreciate the panelists, especially the female, bringing the female agenda on top. My question goes to Rachel. Much has been done in support for women communities in Kenya. We are still lagging behind in some parts of the country. My question is, what is Kenya Red Cross doing to improve the social behavior change, to improve to support the children, especially the girl child, who are, right now we have the Gen Zs coming up, and most of them are yet to learn so much. Yes, what are the programs that Kenya Red Cross is putting up to mitigate against the risk that they might face in future?
Thank you so much for your question. Kenya Red Cross works so much in the community, and whatever programs that we implement in the community, we ensure public participation with everyone that is involved, from the women to the girl child to the men in these communities, because we know men are the gatekeepers. So one of the things that we do is we ensure that the religious men, mainly the gatekeepers in the community, are the ones that, first of all, we talk to and we speak to them regarding to the programs that we are bringing to the communities, so that they are acceptable, so that they are able to also have these discussions down at the family level, where they're able to speak to their women. And then also in the process, we get the women to come in and have discussions with us so that they're able to properly implement a program. For instance, I'd give an example of a livelihood project that we're implementing, where we know women are the ones who bring in food. They're the ones who think about what will be cooked, what will people eat. They think down to the nutritional levels of what a child, their last born or even their first born or whatever it is they are going through, they know what is to be done. So in all this, we have to speak to the gatekeepers, who will now then take that message to their women, and then they see yes, these women need to be involved in this so that they are able to come and be part of the program. So in that way, we are able to implement and empower the women. The women are able to empower their young girls, and then it's just a continuous circle.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I hope your question was answered, Maureen. Our next question is from Christine.
My question goes to Esther. I'm going to cut across the people living with disabilities. How does Kenya Red Cross show inclusivity to the women living with disabilities?
Thank you, Christine, for that question. One of the things that Kenya Red Cross implements and guided by the 7 fundamental principles, where one of the principles is that we are impartial and we cannot discriminate, and we need to include everybody in what we do. So then people with disability becomes a critical component, especially when we talk about inclusivity. Again, it's one of our core values that we have to be inclusive. So deliberate efforts towards inclusivity for people with disabilities is that in spaces of representation in our governance team, our constitution allows that our governance team has representation from people with disabilities. That is now our governance team. Number 2, we're talking about institutionalization. When you come into our facilities, you will realize that our facilities are not gender inclusive, are not disability inclusive. And so one of the things that we are doing deliberately is to ensure that we institutionalize, we are able to have our buildings to accommodate people with disability. And that is something that we are doing with the upcoming buildings and even the ones that are, the ones that are there. We're just looking towards how do we modify this. Lastly, is about response. When we go for response, probably we are meeting people who cannot hear. Sometimes it becomes very complex to even do evacuation.
Exactly.
And like there was a story, I don't know when, but where the response was done, and by the time they are really talking to, only to realize that the lady was deaf. So what we are doing is we are including sign language interpretation. We are integrating that in our response teams so that we are able to address that. Social services is also a thematic area within Kenya Red Cross. Kenya Red Cross currently we have a home where we purely deal with children with physical disability, where we support them to access education and medical health in Embu. So yes, we are really intentional again in ensuring that we don't leave anyone behind.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And you've definitely illustrated that so well. I mean, even I did not know that, your inclusivity gets to that level. So asanteni sana. So I want to give my wonderful panelists an opportunity to give us a parting shot. On this International Women's Day. It could be, it could be something from the heart to our wonderful, wonderful audience here and both at home. So I'll start off with you, Christine.
I think for me as a disaster responder, I will just say it's a safe space. We've come a long way. There's a lot more firefighters who are female nowadays. If you look at the city council, we have so many of them lately. When I started in G4S, I was the only female firefighter back then.
Rambo.
Yes, so you are allowed to come on board.
Yes.
You are allowed to, there's already people who have fought in the men's spaces and created enough space for you to fit in.
Wow.
So mothers and fathers, allow your children to show up and start at a young age so that they are not afraid of blood and everything else that comes with it, because that's it. But though there's also reporting, there's tracing, there's many aspects of disaster response. You don't necessarily have to be in the field and to deal with what we deal with.
Yes.
But I can 100% confirm, compared to when we started, it's a safe space. So be encouraged to study disaster management and response. Be encouraged to be an EMT, emergency medical technician, or a firefighter, whatever it is that you choose to be. It's a safe space for girls now.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
I like that. It's a safe space. So if you are thinking of being an EMT, A first responder of any sort, you know, firefighter, etc. You know, there's been ladies like Christine who've sat there and they've wiggled and they've said there's enough room for everybody, so come on over. Thank you so much. That is so encouraging a message to hear on this Independence Women's Day. I'll move on to you, Rachel. Rachel, karibu sana. What's your parting shot for the day?
Thank you so much. So my parting shot for today would be, let's encourage our girls to get into STEM. Because as a woman in engineering, I can say we are only, in my department, we're only 2 ladies. And let's encourage our girls not to be scared of maths or physics. It's fun, and it's a good field to be, and I feel women bring in a different picture when it comes to innovation and solutions.
Yeah.
And our girls will be a good part of this. Thank you.
Wow. I like that. I really do. We previously did an episode on actually encouraging ladies and figuring out what are some of the root causes that women tend to shy away from, you know, from STEM-related subjects, which of course in university, which of course lead away from STEM-related careers. And we're really, really happy and encouraged to see Rachel over here with us, and she's encouraging you. And she's saying, see, she's still very fashionable. She still looks fantastic. She can still wear her makeup, and she can still have her nails and still be one of the best engineers. So thank you so much. That is truly, truly inspirational, Rachel. And finally, Madam Esther, Madam Boss, Madam Esther.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. This has been quite an interesting show.
Yes.
As we celebrate this Women's Day, my call is for more women in decision making, more women in leadership. And leadership can start at any level, just where you are. So mine is to say that let's take action. Let's take action, because an inch of movement will bring us closer to achieving gender equality than it would take a mile of intention.
Oh, wow.
So let's take action. Let's do this.
So we have come to the end of another very, very insightful episode of Dadas Show. And I really, really hope you've been able to learn something. Remember, the theme that was carried this International Women's Day was Accelerate Action. This, of course, calls for action and the urgency in achieving gender parity. So we really, really encourage you at home, whatever position that you're holding, kindly help us move a step closer to being able to get full gender equality in Kenya. So on behalf of the Kenya Red Cross Society, the production team at KBC, myself, Ashiko Mbune, we thank you all for tuning in to today's celebration and acknowledgement of the International Women's Day celebration 2025. We hope to catch you the same time, same place next week. But for now, have yourself a lovely week and goodbye.